You don't join the Kingsguard because you want a job. You join because someone decides you are useful as a symbol. That's the first truth of the White Cloak. It isn't only armor. It's a story the realm tells itself that honor can be made permanent, that loyalty can be worn, that a sword can belong to duty instead of desire. And once the cloak touches your shoulders, your life stops being yours. The candidate. Before you're a knight of the Kingsguard, you're a name whispered in halls. A tourney champion, a war hero, a son of a great house who needs to be removed from inheritance quietly, a prodigy with a blade who makes lords feel safe or uneasy. You're praised publicly, examined privately, not just for skill, but for temperament. Can you hold your tongue? Can you obey without sulking? Can you stand still for hours without fidgeting like a bored boy? Can you be near power without reaching for it? Because the Kingsguard doesn't protect a person. It protects the idea of the throne. The White Cloak. When you take the vows, the world narrows. No wife, no lands, no children, no personal wars, no private ambitions you can admit out loud. Your family smiles at the ceremony because it's glory, and they swallow the part where it's also a kind of death. The words sound noble until you realize what they mean in practice. You belong to the crown now. Not today. Not for a campaign. Forever. And the moment you rise, the first hard lesson arrives. Everyone will assume your honor is real. That assumption is your weapon and your trap. The junior brother B. At the bottom of the Kingsguard, you're still a legend to small folk. But inside the White Sword Tower, you're the newest blade in an old rack. Your first assignments are visibility. Stand behind the king at court. Stand at the queen's door. Escort princes through quarters. Ride at the edge of a procession like a warning. Most of your work is not fighting, it's posture. You learn to be still without looking bored, alert without looking afraid. You learn to move like you belong in the room while making it clear you don't belong to anyone in it. And you learn quickly. The White Cloak draws eyes the way blood draws flies. Every lord watches you. Every rival measures you. Every whisper tries to decide whether you're loyal, proud, corruptible, or simply young enough to make mistakes. The sword at court, this is where the real battle begins, and it isn't with steel, it's with rooms. You stand in councils where men trade lives like coin. You listen to lies spoken politely. You watch alliances form and collapse in a smile. You learn that protect the king can mean protecting him from enemies or protecting him from his own mouth. You're expected to be silent, but not blind. You learn to recognize danger before it arrives, dressed as danger. A servant who lingers too long, a noble who steps too close, a cupbearer whose hands shake, a hallway that's too empty, a door that's too convenient. And you learn a truth nobody says at the oath. Sometimes the greatest threat to the throne sits on it. Field duty, sooner or later, court sends you out. War, progress, royal hunts, hostage exchanges. Diplomatic meetings where everyone smiles like knives are illegal. In the field, the White Cloak becomes heavier. It gets stained. It becomes a problem. It makes you visible to archers and assassins. It makes you the first target and the last to retreat. This is where you learn what your title really means. You do not get to be brave. You have to be correct. You don't chase glory. You don't break formation to win a duel. You don't gamble the king's safety for your own legend. Your job is not to kill the enemy. Your job is to make sure the king survives the day. And survival is rarely cinematic. It's angles, spacing, horse positioning, routes chosen before dawn, men posted where nobody wants to stand. Personal shield. Now you're trusted closer. You're in private chambers. You're on the king's morning walks. You're present for arguments that should never have witnesses. You see the royal family without crowns, which is always more dangerous than seeing them with them. At this level, you learn another truth. The Kingsguard is not only protection, it's containment. You contain access. You contain information. You contain scandals by being there when they happen. You become the man who hears secrets without reacting. And that has a cost. Because you learn things you cannot forget, and you cannot speak them. the veteran brother. After enough years, you stop being tested openly. Now you are the test. New brothers arrive, full of pride and talent. They watch you for cues. They copy your calm, your discipline, your silence. They learn what Kingsguard looks like by looking at you. And you realize the white cloak is contagious. If you cut corners, they will too. If you take bribes, they will imagine bribes are normal. If you sleep on duty, you teach them sleep is forgivable. So you become strict, not because you like being hard, but because you know what softness costs. You also become tired in a particular way, not tired of fighting, tired of standing between power and consequence. Commander's hand, now you lead. You plan the security for progress routes. You assign brothers to posts. You coordinate with City Watch, household guards, and men who resent being told what to do by someone in white. You learn that authority here is delicate. You outrank many men in practice, but not always in pride. Some lords think they can order you. Some captains think you're ceremonial. You learn to enforce without escalating, to correct without humiliating, to make the right decision quickly and then carry it, because nobody wants to hear uncertainty from the person guarding the throne. Lord Commander. If you rise to Lord Commander, the cloak becomes heavier than armor. Now you're responsible for the king's protection and the Kingsguard's integrity. Your job becomes choosing which risks are acceptable and which are not, and you do it in a court full of people who want you to be loyal to him. You sit in council meetings as both witness and warning. You decide who gets near the king. You decide how the guard is deployed. You investigate your own men when rumors rise. You handle discipline quietly because public scandal weakens the crown. You learn the hardest truth of the position: you can't win. If you are too strict, you become an enemy. If you are too flexible, you become a crack. If you are too loyal to the king's wishes, you might become complicit. If you are too loyal to the realm, you might become disloyal. And still, every morning you put on white and pretend the world is simpler than it is. The white ghost, there is no real retirement. If you survive long enough, you become a kind of relic, a living proof that vows can last. You stand in the White Sword Tower and remember brothers who died young, and kings who died to spite you, and secrets you carry like stones. You realize the final irony of the Kingsguard: you are famous everywhere, and known nowhere. Because your life belongs to the crown, and the crown belongs to history, and history doesn't care what it cost you privately. So what is your life as every rank in the Kingsguard? At first you are chosen. Then you are displayed. Then you are tested by politics. Then you are used in war. Then you are brought close enough to see truth without permission to speak it. Then you become the standard. Then you become the planner. Then you become the burden bearer. Then you become a white shadow who outlives the men you swore to protect. And through every level, the same lesson repeats. The white cloak isn't proof you are honorable. It is a demand that you act like it, even when honor is the most expensive thing in the room.